everyone's talking about AI right now, whether we love it, hate it, don't know, or we feel indifferent about it. It's the hottest subject everywhere. You know, it's in the national news because of like photos that are being shared to content, emails that are being blatantly replied to in AI without that human element.
If you're confident in your product and your service, then I would urge people to have the confidence to do it. It's what entrepreneurs do. You take risks. And the only way you grow is sometimes to take a risk, providing the risk is as calculated as it can be.
We all have the same 24 hours in any given day, and we are all human beings. There is a ceiling as to what we can do. I've seen so many business owners burn out just through trying to do everything.
If you're not in control of the process and what you do already, and why you should be doing something, and the data, you're going to be feeding into an AI system poor data, which is going to give you a poor outcome as well.
Welcome to everybody on our call today. This is the first in our Ask the Expert series that we're doing for our YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Claire Lewis and I work within the marketing team at CH4B. I help the wider team with organic social media content, and I have the privilege of being the first person to host this expert series. And I want to say thank you to Roy, Dean and Nikki for joining us today, but I'd love you to tell the viewers who you are and what you do. Dean, over to you.
So my name is Dean Whitby from Tenacious AI Marketing Global. I'm an expert partner with CH4B. Proud to be so. And at Tenacious, we help people with AI. So two aspects to that. We're experts in helping to get AI to say a business's name. So multiple times to drive traffic to people's website across various different types of LLMs. And then what we've started building is an AI architect team so that we can build out AI automations, look at agentic AI building and the security aspects around AI. So that's what we're dealing with. Amazing.
Thank you very much. And over to you, Roy. Let our audience know who you are.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. So I'm Roy Lyness from Lyness Accountancy Practice. I'm an expert partner at CH4B, and I've been for probably about 2 years now. And it's been great since we came on board. It's a really good organisation. What we do as a business is essentially help our clients make more money and importantly keep more of what they earn. And we also use a unique cash management system to ensure that their cash is managed and they've always got money in the bank to pay the bills, but more importantly, pay themselves first. So that's me. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. And last but by no means least, over to Nikki.
So thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicola Buckley. I'm one of the co-founders and the managing director of CH4B, and I essentially oversee the whole business strategy structure right through to supporting some of our members through monthly productivity calls. So look forward to today's discussion. It's always great to meet with fellow experts and also share some important updates and content with our members and subscribers. So thanks, Claire.
Thank you. So I want to kick this off. So as you all know, I just want us to have a bit of a chat in a few different areas of specialisms that you guys sit in. But I want to kick it off with a little icebreaker, and I'd really love you to give me your perspective on this. I'm going to ask you this question. What is the most expensive mistake that you have seen SME owners make time and time again? Because I think this is going to resonate a lot with the people that are going to see this video. So I'm going to go with Roy first, if that's all right. And then you guys just interject as you see fit, really.
I think the biggest mistake really is focusing on turnover, just focusing on growth for growth's sake, and looking at, oh yeah, turnover, we want to get to 1 million or 2 million or 3 million. And as an example, there was a groundwork company I used to work with a few years ago, and they were being bullied by one of the big house builders. They basically squeezed their margins completely, which meant they were getting the sales, but the margin was going down. So the more sales they were doing, the less profit they were making. And I've seen that happen many times, especially where people are engaged with some of the really big corporates. You know, it's great, oh, we've got this corporate, but you end up almost being at the beck and call of that corporate instead of you running the business and you deciding your margin. So I think the biggest mistake I see is businesses focusing on turnover. And I always say turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, but I always add cash is reality. You've got to make sure that you get the cash in at the right margin.
I like that. Cash is the reality. And I think that a lot of businesses, no matter what area you're in, whatever industry you're supporting, I definitely think that people are seeing that, squeezing and fighting in the bottom because they want the money through the door, and they're not, and then realizing actually my time is worth so much, which I think probably, Nikki, would lead to your perspective on that question, you know?
Yeah, I think we're just touching on what Roy says. A lot of the time, if you're competing on price, it's a race to the bottom, and sometimes you need to be mindful of deals that are worthwhile and those that are worth walking away from, which sounds mad thinking of walking away from business, but it sort of leads into one of the examples that I had around knowing who your ideal client avatar is and actually having a focus on that, because I think sometimes especially startup businesses, they typically try to take on every bit of business that's possible to them at the start, and are almost fearful of turning away business. But I think sometimes it's important to look at the reality and whether that customer or that client is a good fit for your business just as much as you are a good fit for them. However, that wasn't the point I was going to make. That was just something that came to mind. So I might cheat, if that's okay, and add another one.
Feel free. No, do it.
I think we often speak to founders of businesses of all different stages. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've identified is the business owners or operators start to become the bottleneck in the business through fear of relinquishing control or delegation. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see is business owners wanting to scale, wanting to grow, providing obviously the numbers are right and we're focusing on the profit as well as the turnover. But ultimately understanding what that means, whether it's boots on the ground or strategy or automation, which will hopefully lead into Dean's piece in a second, but it's around preventing or strangling the growth of the business through fear of delegation. I think is one of the biggest mistakes. We all have the same 24 hours in any given day, and we are all human beings. There is a ceiling as to what we can do. I've seen so many business owners burn out just through trying to do everything. So that was probably my biggest sort of highlight.
Yeah, and I'm interested, Dean, your take on it, because you come at this from the AI, the automation world. What do you see happen over and over again as a mistake, shall we say?
Well, I've probably made a lot of the mistakes. With 5 businesses behind me, I've made a lot of the mistakes. So that all 3 of those are probably the big, powerful 3. I would say I resonate with all of those. You know, when we're talking about the not turning away customers and picking the right customers, that kind of leads into the one part of what we do, which is if you can think of what, you know, almost engineer it backwards. If you can think of who the right customer is and you can think of the question that you want to be the answer to, then we can engineer that back to. And that's one of the sides of the business that we have. Adding a 4th thing to that list that I think has become a most recent biggest problem, but I think it's always been there. It's just heightened by automation and AI, is trying to add in tools and trying to be shiny object. You know, there are lots of new tools. There's lots of different things that you could automate. But if you're not in control of the process and what you do already and why you should be doing something and the data, you're going to be feeding into an AI system poor data, which is going to give you a poor outcome as well. So I think not being in control of the process before you start to add all these shiny new tools. Don't buy the tools. Look at the data first.
I think that's a really interesting point, because people actually will see something that can help improve their business and help, you know, streamline their business, and then they put it into practice and it isn't giving them the output at the end they want. And actually, because fundamentally at the front end it wasn't correct, So I do think that's a major frustration for people.
And often they say, well, that tool doesn't work, or that process, that doesn't work for me. But it's, like anything, it might not be that doesn't work. It might be that, how you're trying to use it. And there's a stage of work, first of all, that, you need to understand why you're using that and the data. Yeah,
that is very, very good point. And if we're talking about businesses and, configuring a business, you're a founder, you've got a great product, you've got a great niche, and you're going to go on a journey, what I would really like to know, and I'd like to know I'd like your thoughts on this, Roy, as the money man for sure. And I'd probably like to know from you, Nikki, as the MD of a company that's a growing business with variables in your staff. At what exact financial point would you say a founder can actually afford to hire its first manager? And is there a way you can pinpoint that, do you think?
I think from my perspective, do it sooner rather than later.
Okay.
And I can literally go back to my own experience. When I started my accountancy practice, it was literally just me. Mm-hmm. And I was out there getting the work and then bringing the work back to the office and then doing the work. And I thought the only way I'm going to grow is to actually begin to take people and employ people. Yeah. And I actually employed my first person. And he said to me after a couple of weeks, I've got nothing to do. I said, I know. I said, the reason you've got nothing to do is because I haven't been able to get out there marketing the business and pushing the business forward because I'm actually sitting there doing the work. That's why I brought you in. Be patient. And now you're here. I can get out there, do some marketing and bring some people in. In them days, it was probably networking, just getting out into the marketplace. And he's been with me now for about 27 years, I think. He's still with me. So do it sooner rather than later.
And do you think, Roy, that there is a bit of psychology when you're in that founding phase, and obviously money is potentially the issue, that maybe you're a bit scared to hire that manager or that employee because of the cost associated? And how do you mitigate that, I think, down? Because I think that's something that a lot of people right now would be loving the extra help, but worrying about, oh God, we've got to pay them at the end of the month.
Yeah, it is a catch-22. I can't afford it, but I've got to do it. So you have to make a commercial decision. It might be you've got to cut back on what you take. You might need some finance within the business to do that. But if you're confident in your product and your service, then I would urge people to have the confidence to do it. It's what entrepreneurs do. You take risks. And the only way you grow is sometimes to take a risk, providing the risk is as calculated as it can be.
And I guess you've been on that journey, Nikki, because you have founded this company, CH4B. And how did it make you feel? Like, at what point did you think it was the right time to do it?
I mean, we were probably the we probably were the opposite to typically what other businesses would start out in the basis that we had an idea, we had a proof of concept, we were born out of COVID. So the landscape and the business landscape was very different then as it is now, and was prior to COVID. So I think we were in quite a niche opportunity where the world started to embrace online more. Clients were happy to have team and Zoom meetings, etc. And there was a lot of change at that time. We were in quite a fortunate position that we actually had another business that was able to support CH4B financially through its infancy. So we were we had that luxury of not having that battle financially with having to take on or employ new staff members. It was also at a time where a lot of individuals were being made redundant, or there was furlough, or people were in unprecedented circumstances. So I suppose we were fortunate in that we were able to recruit at the right time with the right talent. But I think the most important thing, irrespective of that investment, and I am aware that not all businesses are in that position and they're self-funding, which can be a challenge. Investment is the key word. So you need to see it as an investment over a period of time. Personally, I don't think that there is a magic number, because that number will always shift. We live in a very volatile climate. Things are changing. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. So it's very difficult to predict, I'll recruit when I get to this number, because there'll be a change over here that will then change that number. So I think rather than focusing on the finances, what a business owner would typically, and I would encourage them to look at, is what is the outcome that you're looking to achieve, and then having open discussions about various routes to that outcome and looking at the best pathways for that. Also look at skill set and alignment, because for example, I'm not an accountant for a reason, don't get me wrong, I understand numbers, but Roy is far more qualified in that regard to look after the finances of a business. The same with AI. I've touched on AI. I'm nowhere near as fluid or experienced in AI as what Dean is. So, for example, it's knowing where your skills are, where your capabilities are, and then looking at, right, who is best placed to deliver this outcome? Is it me? Do I need to look at recruiting? Or are there other methods, utilising other experts and partnering with people like CH4B to support if it is just one project? So it very much depends on the circumstance, and every business is unique.
I like what you said there, actually, because I don't think there is ever a right time. When I talk to different business owners on different parts of their journey, everybody always thinks about the yearly salary, rather actually it's what it costs you monthly. Like, it's not the fact that you've got to pay a manager 40, 50, 60,000 pound a year. You've got to be able to pay them monthly, but the bigger number always feels a bit overwhelming. And I think if they just shift their mindset that you've got to pay them for the next you've got to make it for 3 months, and then 3 months, and then the business has changed so much at that point that their salary is more than covering itself. I just want to turn to AI for a moment, if you don't mind. I know I'm going to flip the switch a little bit, but we're talking about founders and businesses and first hires. Everyone's talking about AI right now, whether we love it, hate it, don't know, or we feel indifferent about it. It's the hottest subject everywhere. You know, it's in the national news because of like photos that are being shared, to content, emails that are being blatantly replied to in AI without that human element. And I'd like to know from you, Dean, how would a traditional, boots on the ground, let's say circa 15 staff, traditional business, how would that type of business in the next week actually use AI to its benefit?
So I think it starts with, I mentioned before, understanding the processes that you have. I think there needs to be an understanding of the business that you have and what those repetitive tasks that you have. So if you look from just an automation side of things to start with, there are going to be repetitive tasks from front to finish. And if we split it up to, I think people should look at their sales and marketing first and have a look at, okay, well, from lead to invoice, what is the process there from lead to cash in the bank? And cash in the bank helps you hire people. Cash in the bank helps you with all the other money tends to help in business, right? So have a look at that process and what does that look like? And then try to map out, well, where are those kind of things that humans are doing, and we're repeating those tasks. And that might lead to some ideas around automation within the sales and marketing side of things. After that, you can have a look at the UX experience. So once you've got the clients on board, what's the onboarding process that you have? Could that be better? What are the systems that you have? Could they be better? And understanding the business from front to back is going to give you some little points where you think, actually, it could be right at the front end. Do the sales team need to be, creating proposals that could be done in probably 3 minutes instead of 3 hours? Quotes, those quotes, could we use AI to do that quicker? And the speed then, does that mean that you can bring on more customers and you can start to look at, well, now let's look at the experience for those customers. So I would look at it like a process. If you know nothing about your business and the processes, and you feel uncomfortable that if you fed that data to somebody, what would that look like? Could you tell them exactly everything that happens throughout your business? If the answer is no, start there.
Yeah,
this week.
I like that. And I liked what you said about obviously from lead to cash in the bank, because actually thinking about it, do a lot of people actually think like that? When you actually put it like that, like I've never looked at it like that, Dean. And actually from a lead coming in to the cash in the bank, there is an awful lot that happens. And people worry that AI is going to replace us. And no, AI is just going to enhance us and make us better at what we do.
And that's exactly, I mean, I believe that too. I think if you want to go to the moon, AI can tell you how to do that. Even if you want to fix a lorry, if you want to build a website, I don't think there's much that AI can't teach you how to do. And then if you get stuck, you take a little screenshot, you feed it back into AI, and it'll tell you the next little bit. You get stuck, you take a screenshot, feed it back into AI, so people can pretty much do anything. But what they can't do is, in a business, some of those touch points where, the business is still about people. And what you're looking for is that, it's not that AI replaces people, it's that people learn how to use and get the best out of AI so that their businesses become better, more profitable, and better for the customer.
Yeah. So on the subject of profit and cash in the bank, this is one for you, Roy, which I would love your input on. So like you said, businesses turnover, they love the sound of the turnover, they want to know about the profit. So let's just look at like an SME. Let's say our ideal client avatar, £2 million turnover, Nikki, right? We like companies, we work best with those types of businesses. So let's bring it back to where our sweet spot with clients. So Roy, if there's a company out there and they're turning over £2 million and they've got no cash in the bank at the end of the month, where's that money hiding? And how can we make sure that there is money in the bank at the end of the month? Because if you're turning over that level of income a year, I don't think we should be struggling at the end of the month. And I've got a funny feeling that a lot of the audience that are going to see this are going to be sitting there going, that's me. Maybe they don't know where it's hiding.
Absolutely, Claire. And I see this many times when we pick up clients. It goes back to what I said earlier about turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality. That is where this really hits home, because what they've probably done is grown the business focused on turnover, perhaps not at the right margin. I would imagine they've got a debtor book that is large, so they're not controlling their cash collection. They'll probably agree terms with the customer. A lot of businesses just give 30 days or 60 days because that's the norm.
Yeah, and even like 60 days end of month, so it's even a little bit longer as well.
90 days, and when you look at the debtor book, it's probably 120 days.
Yeah.
Picked up a client last year, and basically I got something like a £400,000 or £500,000 debtor book, and we looked at it and just said, look, what's your terms? Oh, it's 30 days. Well, why is all this money over here that's not being collected? Oh, I don't really know. We collect it. We just got them to get on the phones literally and collect that cash, and it literally transformed the bank account, because they reminded the customers that the terms were what they agreed. But what I say is, you don't have to give credit.
No.
You don't have to do what everybody else in your industry does. You don't have to.
How do you mitigate that? Being their interest-free loan account or bank, how do you mitigate that problem?
Well, that's effectively what you're doing, Claire, if you're giving extended credit. Okay, I do accept in some industries, you might not get the work. If you don't give credit, that might be where it is in your industry. But you've got to make sure you collect the cash on the terms agreed. That's the key. Don't let the customer drive it. As soon as they are over, the terms agreed, you should be straight onto them and have a system and process in place. Dean was talking earlier about systems and processes. You need a cash collection system.
And we can automate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Much of it can be automated, Dean. I would agree.
And do you think some of this element of actually, because I'm so focused over here, I'm not actually looking at who's owing me over here and who's over by 30 days and now 60 days is 90 days, 120 days. Do you think that there's an element there of and Nikki, I'd like to know from you on this actually, because I think that, again, sitting in your position as MD of a business, do you feel that that can be a negative with delegation in a business, that you've got your FD in your business and you're putting your trust in them as a founder of a company. Is there any negatives to the delegation process, particularly where this area is?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, obviously for any business owner, it's really important to know the numbers. And I understand that sometimes bringing experts in, when you do let go of the reins or you delegate certain things, you almost instruct that individual to produce the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. One of the biggest things that we see working with the business owners that we work with is that the business owners don't necessarily know the numbers, or they're not aware of what those risks are, and they're not on top of it due to either delegation, having a finance director, or having an accounts team that measure the finances. I think delegation is great and it's really important, but it comes back to what Dean was saying earlier about the process. It's fine to delegate, but how often are you receiving a report from your accounts team? Are you asking the right questions as to where that money is? Obviously, you mentioned a £2 million turnover business and having no cash in the bank. How often are you reviewing that? So, for example, internally, we try and practice what we preach. We would have a weekly revenue meeting. So our senior leadership team get together once every week on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock to review the numbers, review where we are to target, review where the business is and how we are performing. Are there any outstanding invoices? Are we waiting for any renewals in membership, example? Were there any failed payments? And just getting an understanding as to where the business is. And that is really important as businesses are growing and scaling, because it's very easy to lose control. Roy, I know from working with you, some of the work that you do with our members is actually at least a quarterly review on them and looking at their finances in their business. With making Touch Digital now, it's made things it's made it easier to have visibility and see where things are tied up and to bring in various automation. So I think it's really important that even if you are delegating or you're bringing somebody in that is their skill set and that is their expertise, that you're regularly reviewing and keeping on top of what's happening.
Yeah, I like that. And actually to hear like that revenue meetings are happening in the companies that are the SME, you think of it at like really corporate level, but actually to know that it's probably more important in a smaller SME to actually really get under them numbers and know it, so to avoid the zero cash in the bank.
And on that as well, Claire, you know, that's exactly the kind of proof case for an automation or an AI build. Because imagine for that board position to take care, you know, for that conversation to happen, you know, having accurate data and having that data set. So, you know, that's potentially something that could be built. It's almost like a dashboard for the senior leadership team that covers kind of sales. It could cover those financial numbers, operations, UX, customer service, and just bringing all of that data in is something that humans would do. But I can imagine that would take a long time. The bigger the business, the longer that takes just to have the conversation. Yeah. But you could have that all in a dashboard and AI does all the donkey work. You just feed in. So that could be quite useful in that scenario, you know?
And it's funny that, because we were on the subject of software, you know, we spoke about processes. If you're looking at the average business, let's just say, for want of a better phrase, what do you see as the most valuable, boring piece of software that they need in their business right now to make the biggest impact and the biggest difference? What would you say it would be, Dean, right now?
Well, that's a big question if we were to pick one piece of software, but I think probably it would be something around you know, the sales and marketing as the easiest side of things, and the operations to just kind of make that quicker, make that less donkey work, and make it more professional, if you like. One of the things I think that businesses are struggling with when it comes to AI is the security aspect, or that. Because, a lot of the, if you're thinking like sensitive data, and you're using an LLM, potentially that's public data. And so when we talk about, where AI opens up the ability for kind of hacking and things, that becomes a sensitive area that people feel uncomfortable for the security of developing these systems. But you can do it securely. You can build kind of secure by design. So at the design stage, you can factor that in so that you control the data, that data never leaves an environment. So you can build it that way. What most people are going to do is build themselves, do it DIY. And that's where it can come into problems, because if you haven't got an element of security and you're putting sensitive data into AI platforms when you build things, that's where a lot of the problems that are going to come into the media are happening, because it's not necessarily secure. Which is fine if you don't care about the data.
No, and I just think that we've all got that responsibility, haven't we? No matter what our role in a business is, if we work in a business like I work in Nikki's business, or you guys all own your own businesses, every person involved in that business that's handling data has to have a moral obligation to ensure that they're doing their best to ensure that that's not leaked or that's not getting into the wrong hands at any point. So I like that. Nikki and Roy, do you have any input on that? Because you both run in businesses where you're both utilising AI software and tools and changing the landscape for what you do. Have you got any input on, the security element of the AI?
Well, I think security generally is, in any business, customer data, you have to look after it. You have to treat it as your own. So you've got to have, IT security, cyber security systems in place, because let's face it, we're all under attack. People are out there, cyber criminals are looking for ways to get your data, get at your bank account, get at your customers. So we're all under attack. So you've got to make sure that your basic data, your basic cyber security systems are in place, really. Yes, take insurance as well, but the insurance is only there if you have to call on it. You don't take car insurance and crash your car to get the insurance. No. You make sure you drive carefully, but you got insurance in the background. So people say, I'm insured. It's not about putting insurance in place. Yes, have that, because you'll need it if you do get attacked, but make sure you got your basic cyber IT security systems in place, whether it's AI or general security, really.
Nikki, any further thoughts on that?
I would probably encourage everybody to do a bit of research. So what I have seen a lot of business owners do is use ChatGPT and go, this is the outcome that I want. And they've put in a prompt to ChatGPT, which, yes, will deliver the outcome that you're wanting, or it will give you the steps to go and build something in N8N or Claude Code or whatever software that you're using. But I think it's really important to ensure that you're asking the right questions and using the right prompts to confirm that what you are doing is secure, especially if you are looking to export data from one system and then pull it into another system. It's understanding where that data goes and how it's stored. And things have changed drastically from technology. We were chatting this week, Claire, when we looked at our newsletter about Sharp, one of our other expert partners who look after printers, photocopiers and any printing needs for businesses. And you wouldn't necessarily think that you scan a document or print a document and that printer then holds all of that data. Like, for me, that's mind-blowing. Going back sort of 15 years, a printer was something there that you printed a document. Prior to that, it was fax. You were transitioning these messages through a fax machine, but not a lot of people were aware, and it's something that I learned from those conversations, is that these machines are actually storing data now and capturing that. So again, it's just making sure that you're doing your research, you're asking the right questions, and if you are unsure, it's better to speak to an expert, speak to Dean and his team, or any other AI tools, to make sure that actually what you are doing is required, that you're doing it in the best and safest possible way, and just being aware of what the risks are if you were to move forward, because again, having that information and having the right data, it also will help make those decisions a lot easier for you moving forward.
Definitely. And we filled 40 minutes already, which has surprised me how quickly that time has gone. So I'm going to wrap this up with you all, and I've got one last question I want to end on, and I really would like you to all answer it. So don't all jump in at once, but whoever wants to go, please do. So you've got an overwhelmed CEO in front of you, and he's got 1 hour this Friday, and he wants to make an impact and try and fix his or her business. What exact tasks do they focus on first? Don't all jump in at once.
Well, I'll start. So I would spend that one whole hour trying to understand, and it would have to be back of a fag pack style, because 1 hour is not very long, and businesses are quite complex. But I would want to understand, before I do anything with what our business could do for him, how well does he understand his business from start to finish? And then we could look at, well, where are the gaps? And then we could look at, well, how could we implement either AI tools that are, off the shelf, or bespoke building, or we could look at the sales and marketing, or we could look at, but I think it's important, I would want to get under the bonnet and spend the whole hour looking at, can I understand the business, and then suggest what I could do.
And I like that, Dean, and I think that's been your theme of actually how much do they know before they fix anything. They've got to understand at the very, very front end what's going on. That's my theme that I've taken from you in this conversation today. Nikki or Roy, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I think coming in really on that, if you've got a CEO that's overwhelmed and you've got an hour, well, an hour won't be enough to sort it, but it will probably be enough just to identify what are the actual issues, what's causing the overwhelm. Is it customers? Is it staff, team members? Is it low margins? Is it lack of cash? And it will probably be one or some of those issues in any business, really. It might be they haven't got the systems and the processes in place. So it's running in his head and he's having to account for everything and do everything because he hasn't sat down and created the systems. It might be that they've actually got too many customers across too many different services and products, instead of actually focusing on their most profitable services and product lines. And I've seen that many times where people just, all the business that comes in, it just comes in, they process it without really sitting down, that Nikki alluded to earlier, about identifying who is your ideal customer avatar and focusing on that type of customer. So it would really be about identifying what's causing the overwhelm, what is the biggest issue, and then start with the biggest issue and work down.
And work back. And Nikki, for you?
Yeah, I'm going, and apologies if you saw me jump. I picked up a prop that I wanted to share, and it had the biggest spider on it that I think I've seen in my office for quite some time. So if you see me doing this, I do apologise. I'm not normally squeamish, but it was a big one. So this will complement both what Roy and Dean were sharing. I'm just going to hold up one of the prompts that we use with every business, which is our roadmap. So I think, just to touch on what Dean was saying, is to understand a business and to ensure that the business owner understands their business, because the other thing to consider is things change, and the vision and values, the proposition, the target market, that may have all shifted from when you first set up the business, especially if you've niched or you've taken a slightly different direction for the business. So the first thing that I just wanted to share was obviously one of the tools that we use internally when we work with our members. That is also available to anybody watching. So if you would like a copy of the roadmap, then we can send a link to you to allow you to access it. What I would actually use the hour for, though, is actually completing another tool that we use called our business scorecard. And essentially what it does is highlights different areas of the business. It's a questionnaire essentially for business owners to complete, and it will give them a score, an implementation score that I call, to look at where the biggest focus points are, or the lowest score, if you like, in the business right now. And then I would try to understand how much of an impact that's having on the day-to-day running of the business, and utilize that scorecard to really focus on where is a priority in the business. And actually sometimes just having those conversations or completing a scorecard can show something that's glaringly obvious, and could also create some really quick wins that could make the biggest impact, like Roy was saying earlier, about looking at the debt in the business and actually what you can do to move that needle and move it forward. So I would say really understand the position that the business is currently in now, and look at where the opportunities and where the weaknesses are, and use that as a tool fundamentally to guide the next steps, because it's impossible to solve everything in an hour. You might have a conversation and you might have a breakthrough, especially if it's with a third party, obviously somebody that's not as close to the business as what you will be being in it. But yeah, there will be takeaways from that hour and those conversations, but I would say the scorecard for me is going to be the most powerful tool to use with that limited time.
I think as well, just adding on to that, you know, it's that kind of doctor and personal trainer analogy, isn't it? If you walked into your doctor's surgery and you had an hour with your doctor, and you come in and you have a problem, you wouldn't really want him to diagnose something straight away. You'd want some questions to try to understand. And it's nice to see that, the overwhelming answer is diagnostic first and then action from that.
I think so too.
I think that's a good point, Dean, because I think it's really easy to just go in and look at taking action straight away, but without understanding if that is the challenge or the pain point. Yes, you could fix something, or you might find a cure, but is that going to have the impact on the business that you thought it would, or are you going to do that and then still have this problem over here? So there could be multiple reasons, and it's important to understand
there's a great saying on that, Dean: prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Yeah, well, you don't know what harm you're going to inflict.
Absolutely.
I think this has been a good conversation for sure between you all, so thanks for joining me. The scorecard for anyone watching will be in the description with this video if anyone wants to take it. It will take a few minutes, and you can spend that hour and then reach out for help if you need it with any of the people on the call or anything like that. But thanks everyone for getting involved in today's conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
No worries.